Well, if you had just walked into our church and you didn't have any background in Christianity, you hadn't listened to those readings, you might think, I'm out of here. Those are just kind of weird readings. And I don't know what kind of group of people this is, but first reading, they're arguing, jealous over who got what. And the second reading, the rich are being like condemned, and everything they've done is terrible. And then Jesus is saying, cut off hands and feet and pluck out eyes. Nah, I think this is just kind of a weird group, maybe. So let me try, you're still sitting here, to make that not so bad, make some things make sense there. Because I think it's just we have to improve our hearing a little bit, because we might initially react, oh, that was odd. So that first reading, Moses has been working. He got all those people out of Egypt, and it was a lot of work for one guy, and he needed help. So he went to God and said, what am I supposed to do here? I can't do this all by myself. I need a Deacon Doug or somebody to help me with my work. And God said, pick out 70, and we'll take those 70 and we'll let the Spirit come on them. And so they did, only Moses had written down 70 names, and as you heard, Eldad and Medad were out, hunting or something that day. But they got it anyway, because their names were on the list. So they got to be prophets, those 70. So you might think, well, prophets, that's somebody who can foretell the future, but that's not the Old Testament definition of a prophet. A prophet in the Old Testament is just somebody who talks to God. That's it. Now, if they're talking to God on a regular basis, then their understanding of what's going on in the world might be a little bit better than others. And so prophets over the ages have been people who spoke truth when we didn't always want to hear the truth. But they're people who talk to God. Now, the good news in that first reading is Moses is saying to Joshua, when Joshua's mad that these two guys got it anyway, Moses says, wouldn't it be great if everyone was a prophet? Wouldn't that be great? If everyone talked to God. If everyone had such a good relationship with God that they knew what God wanted, and they would act that way. And that's reflected a little bit in the gospel today, when there were people out getting rid of evil. And the disciples are a little bit jealous there too, like, hey, those guys aren't part of us. If they're getting rid of evil, Jesus says, they're part of us. So they belong. The Spirit is working even there. So relax. God's Spirit is working in many places. So good news number one. Number two, if you're rich, don't start sweating right now from that second reading. Read it carefully, because James does not say it's bad to be rich. That's not the message. After all, churches benefit, Creighton benefits, a lot of places benefit from people having money who are generous and give. So, no, it's not bad to be rich. How did they get rich? It's right there in the reading, which is why their wealth is a problem. Because they didn't pay people well. They abused their workers. They even killed some of their workers. So it's how they treated their employees that is the problem. That is an injustice. And that fits in with prophets in the Old Testament too, who railed against people who were unjust to their workers. They have to be treated fairly and well. So the second reading is really about justice for workers. And then in the gospel, cutting off hands and feet and plucking out eyes, you might think, that just seems a little extreme. Jesus is being a good Semite in that. And he exaggerates. In a number of those things that he teaches, he's using that Semitic kind of exaggeration thing, like when he says you need to hate your parents, and it's a Semitic kind of approach. But if he was here today, he might use something like cancer as the image. So if you have a tumor and a cancer growing in you, you probably would want to do what? Cut it out. Because that cancer is killing you. If you don't treat it, it will kill you. Jesus is saying in the spiritual life, there are similar things to that. Things that will be in you that make it really hard to be holy, that make it really hard to be a disciple, that maybe make it impossible for God to dwell in you. Because some sins are like cancers, and they take over. And they become your God. And maybe it might be wealth. Maybe it's the pursuit of that occupies your life, that has become a cancer. Or maybe it's one of the many, many things in our world today that are temptations. Maybe that is the cancer that is eating away your holiness, eating away your spiritual life. So Jesus is encouraging you and me today to be serious about that. Yes, we are loved by God, but some things get in the way from our end, not God's end, that prevent us from knowing and living as God wants us to live. That needs to be removed from us. It's serious business. It's something we should not just simply let go of, but to say, no, I need to change this. I need to be more like Jesus. Because that's Jesus' goal. He wants you all to be prophets. He wants you all to be in a relationship with God. He wants all of you. Not just part, but all of you. That's what it means to be his disciple. And then you have power, as that guy did, to get rid of evil, if you truly follow him.